Welcome to Raw in a Flash. My name is Carmela Soleil, and today you're joining me for another gorgeous sunny day in my outdoor kitchen. We're going to be making a raw vegan ranch dressing, so that's something that is really awesome for people that are trying to move away from dairy, because the traditional ranch dressing is using usually buttermilk or sour cream or yogurt. There's different versions of it, but always with some dairy. The other great thing about making your own dressings is that the commercial types usually use canola oil, and most of the canola oil is unfortunately genetically modified. So that's really bad news. And whenever you buy something that has long shelf lives, you know that there's lots of preservatives in there. So if you can stay away from that, the more you can stay away, the better. So it's very easy to make your own dressing at home. And the ranch dressing I'm going to be sharing today is just, there's no excuse not to make it because it's so quick and so delicious. So we're not going to be using dairy, but instead we'll be using cashews, and cashews will give it that nice creamy consistency. To make the dressing, I'll be using the Omni blender, which is a 3-horsepower blender. So a powerful blender that can allow you to do all sorts of creams and soups and smoothies. And the key things about smoothies, nowadays the big thing is to put fresh greens in your smoothies. And the telltale sign, if you have a good blender or not, is always whether the greens are completely pulverized in the process. And when you don't have such a good blender, you're left with little chunks, and that means you can't really get all the nutrition from the fibers of the greens. So the Omni blender does a really good job at pulverizing greens. It's also a bit of a mix between the Vitamix and the Blendtec, which are probably the most famous or the most popular high-power blenders on the market. It has an electronic setting like this, where you can pick either low, medium, or high, and also predetermined seconds. It's sturdy. It's got 6 blades, which is actually more than the other blenders, if I remember correctly. It also has an 8-cup container, which is, is it a 6-cup? Oh no, a 6-cup container, but you can easily fit another 2 cups in there. And it's got a great warranty, 7-year warranty, and it's, best of all, it's so much cheaper than other blenders that I've seen. So $250 plus shipping. So it's hard to go wrong with a blender like this. So, and I know personally the guy who imports them, Thomas Fox, and he's a really great guy. So whatever happens to your blender, you can contact him, and he won't give you any trouble at all. And actually, when I discovered the blender, I was so impressed with it that I decided to write the book that Thomas was looking for. He was looking for somebody to write a raw recipe book for the blender, and you got it just there, deliciously raw. So it gives you a bunch of recipes. The idea is that once you have your blender, you don't use it for a couple of weeks and then put it in the cupboards because you don't have any inspiration. So with the recipe book, hopefully it gives you a few recipes to play with, and enough recipes that you feel confident about using your blender and want to keep doing it. So alright, so back to today's recipe. So the ranch dressing, first thing I'm going to put in is cashews that I've soaked for an hour or so. You maybe wonder why not soak the cashews longer, because usually for other types of nuts you soak them overnight in order to release the enzymes and also eliminate the enzyme inhibitors. In the case of cashews, unfortunately, most of the cashews on the market, even though it says raw, they actually were exposed to some kind of heat in the initial process. So most cashews are actually cooked. So even if you were to sprout them or put them in water longer, nothing would happen to them. So an hour, the reason why we soak them for an hour is to make them softer and therefore easier to blend for a creamier consistency. There are, however, some cashews that are truly raw, so that's what you're looking for, truly raw cashews. And these are available at certain raw online stores, probably some health food stores as well, but you're looking for the truly raw cashews. So, okay, so my soaked cashews in there. I'm using some olive oil. I'm using a mixture of lemon juice and apple cider vinegar that's unpasteurized. Some honey to balance the flavors. So actually I said it was vegan, I guess I lied. I'm using honey, but of course if you have a thing against honey, you could always use other types of sweetener like coconut nectar or agave, although I'm not recommending agave anymore just because of the really bad rep that it's got, mostly around the really high fructose content. So I've decided I'm okay with honey, so you have to feel for yourself what feels right for you. So some kind of sweetener, some garlic cloves, and as I often remind Dawn, not all garlic cloves are equal, so whenever you see a recipe that calls for a garlic clove, it's usually a medium-sized garlic. So when you have a clove that's really big, or maybe a garlic that's very potent, organic garlic is usually more potent than regular conventional garlic, so that will affect the recipe, right? So you have to bear that in mind and also go according to your taste buds. You might prefer more garlicky than other people. So in this case I'm using actually 2 garlic cloves because they were a little too small. Alright, then now for seasoning I'm using onion powder, garlic powder, and some salt. Himalayan salt is the best that we've found. And alright, some water. So I'm going to start with half a cup of water. Right, and then I'll see what the consistency is like, and then I can adjust depending on how I like it. So if you notice, I'm leaving something out, and that's actually dill. If you were to use dried dill, you could just put it in right away. I'm preferring to use fresh dill for today's recipe. And what I'll do, I've already chopped the dill, and I'm going to add it after it's all nice and smooth, because I want to retain that texture of the dill. So here we go. I'm going to try with a 60-second cycle. One thing with the Omni Blender, when you use the 60-second or the 90-second cycles, you'll notice after 30 seconds it stops on its own. And the reason why it does that is to allow, if there's vegetables that didn't get cut by the blades, it's to allow them to sink and then get processed better. So it starts again, it stops and then starts again going low, medium, and high. And there's nothing you have to do about it. It just does it on its own. What I did though, I stopped it after the 30-second marker because I thought I would check on the consistency. So let's see. And it looks really creamy. That's what you're looking for, so there's no sense in blending longer than you have to. Remember that when you're blending, and that's something I should have mentioned in my soup recipes, I know sometimes people say, well, why would you use hot water to warm up your soups if you can just let the blender run longer and heat the soup that way? The thing is, the longer it processes, the more air it gets in contact with and the more oxidation. So it's really not a good idea to just keep your blender, running to heat whatever you want to eat. So I like to use the hot water in my soups for that reason. And also, like I was saying, there's no reason to process the dressing any longer than it really needs to. Alright, so I'm going to add the dill. Now I'm just going to use the low button, and I'm going to stop it after a few seconds. So I had already pre-chopped the dill, so that also allows me to not process it for very long. Alrighty. So let's see, I'm liking the texture, so I don't think I'm going to add any water at this point. Perhaps once it's in the fridge, it might thicken a bit. Probably will, actually. In that case, then I can just add a bit of water and then just shake it around and adjust the consistency then. So there you have it, a raw vegan, mostly vegan ranch dressing that was homemade in just a few minutes, 10 minutes. And that was today's recipe at the Sunny Raw Outdoor Kitchen. I'm Carmela Soleil, and I'll see you again with another raw recipe very soon. Bye for now.